So tonight I'm going to talk about Finland and Norway. So we run a couple of tours to Finland and Norway, both of which take place in June, and both of which we fly from London to Helsinki. And then the first tour we're going to talk about tonight is basically in mid Finland and northeast Finland, looking for owls and eastern specialities, for which we fly to Oulu, which is in central Finland. And then we spend some time there before driving up to Guillemot on the Russian border. And then the second part of the talk will be on northern Finland and Norway, of which we fly to Rovaniemi in the north of Finland, or either Ivalo, depending on flight availability. And then we head up to Varanga Fjord in the north, and we'll finish up there. So we've flown from Helsinki to Oulu. This is our hotel, and as you can see, lovely, nice modern, sort of modernish building. Lots of good habitat around the outside of the hotel. So lots of birch trees, pine woods, and nice short turf for lots of birds. And then on the left-hand side of the screen, you can just see the little corner of a roof there. That's the sauna. So for anyone who's sort of quite keen, and it's one of those naked saunas apparently. So I've never tried it myself, but there you go. So we've dropped our bags off, and everyone's itching to get birding. So we spend a bit of time around the hotel gardens. And pied flycatchers are a very common nesting species. This is a male pied flycatcher, and the local hotel and naturalist groups have put nest boxes up. So, and these take readily to nest boxes, and there's half a dozen pairs just in the hotel garden, which is really nice. And there's a female pied flycatcher. This one's got a little tasty morsel in its beak there, because there are lots of insects in Finland, which we'll talk about a bit later. And also we have redwings. So redwings are a common nesting species in Finland, and this is what you hear. And it's if you've been there for the first time, you think, what's that singing? It's sort of very fluty call with this scratchy warble, and you soon get your ears tuned in to the song of redwing. So we're used to seeing them in the winter, but say here they're breeding. Along with fieldfare. Fieldfare are another common breeding species. This one's singing from overhead wires just in the hotel gardens. And again, we're so used to seeing them in winter, and just seeing them in the summer is just a little bit odd. But absolutely fantastic to see. And brambling, again, it's another bird we see readily in the winter here in the UK and spring, but here they're a breeding bird, and this bird's singing, if you can call it singing. There's a woodpecker in the background there, I don't know if you heard that, but it's got this very sort of nasally wheeze is its song. And this is a male, lovely black head and lovely orange breast, and they sit right on top of the pine trees and utter this wheezy song. And again, lovely to see. So our hotel is situated on the coast at a place called Capercaillie, which, if I pronounced that right. If anyone's ever been to Finland, they will know how difficult it is to pronounce the names of the places. They've got lots of I's and J's and O's and K's. And in fact, when we do the bird list in the evening, it takes longer to do the place names than it does what birds we've seen. It's absolutely horrendous. Trying to spell Sikioki when it's got 2 J's, 2 K's, 3 I's, 4 O's. Yeah, horrendous. But anyway, so this is a view from the back of the hotel from a viewpoint. But this bay, this was taken early one morning, and it's like the water's like glass. So all you can see is like the land in the distance, like hovering in the sky. But absolutely fantastic area for birding. We have lots of Arctic terns with a lovely blood red bill and these long tail streamers. So these are a very common breeding species around the bay. Also common terns as well, and occasionally a few Caspian terns. And redneck grebes. So we don't often see them in this plumage here in the UK, but absolutely stunning. That lovely, obviously, red neck and the yellow base to the bill. And these frequent the marshy margins around the lagoon. and always nice to see. It's not the best photograph in the world. It was a bit distant, but always nice. And by the time we get to Finland in mid-June, these have arrived. This is common rosefinch, or scarlet rosefinch they used to be called. And this is a lovely male, and he's singing, "Pleased to meet you. Pleased to meet you." And these are a fantastic, fantastic migrant. So these winter down in India and breed up in Finland. The females are very brown and slightly dull, and they've got the nickname of Grotfinch by birders, but the males are something special, really, really nice. And then around the lake, you've got little gulls. So little gulls breed in sort of small numbers, but absolutely stunning in the sort of, sunshine. Lovely sort of white upper wings, that lovely black head, and there's lots of food for them. Finland's got 1 or 2 mosquitoes, especially in June. And the temperature in June is about 20 degrees normally in Oulu. And as we go across to Kuusamo, the temperature does drop. But this is an area where there are mosquitoes. But I'll show you later, we do have mosquito hats, which are an essential item. And then just nearby to the hotel, maybe a 10-minute drive, in a small residential area, there's a pond, and which is home to Slavonian grebe. Absolutely stunning in summer plumage. Yeah, so there's several pairs in Oulu area, but this one is on a small pond, and just sitting down by the side of the pond, you get some fantastic views of the Slavonian grebe in with the local mallards, and if occasionally they come in really nice and close. And I'm not a photographer, I'm self-trained, but if you're into photography, it's a great place to visit. Really, really good. And then on the edge of Oulu, there's 1 or 2 pairs, or probably only 1 pair now. This is Terek sandpiper. Now you have to excuse the quality of the photo. It was taken, I think I digiscoped this, but you can just about make out it's got orangey legs and a sort of upturned bill, and it's got this sort of black sort of stripe across its back. And these breed in the local snow dump. So every winter there's lots of snow in Oulu, and it all gets dumped in one big area. And for some reason, this pair of Terek sandpipers love to nest there. And this is on a small pond, just next door to the snow dump. And then when they display, they fly up onto this lighting rig, and then they fly up and do this display flight. But this is pretty much the only pair in northern Finland. It's right on its edge of its breeding range. I mean, you'd expect to see more in Russia and places like Belarus, but this is always a speciality of Finland. Now you can see here from this that the roads are obviously really busy, and when you think of Finland, you think of forests, big open areas and forests. And this is just a typical, although this forest has just been partially felled, you can see pretty much as far as the eye can see, it's just forest. But the reason for heading to this part of Finland to do a trip is owls. And everyone wants to see the special owls of the area. So this is Ural owl, and you can go at any time of the day to see these, although evening and early mornings are preferable. But this was just taken at 4 o'clock one afternoon. So this is quite a big owl. It's bigger than a tawny owl, but absolutely stunning. And those big piercing black eyes. And I say this is a big owl. And I say this was taken in the afternoon. And the owls in Finland, obviously, due to prey numbers. So some years it's a good vole year and the owls do really well. And then likewise, it's a poor vole year and the owls, might only have 1 young instead of 3 or 4. But the last few times I've been to Finland, it's been very good vole year. So this particular bird had this lovely chick nearby. Now, although it looks like I'm quite close to this, I am at a distance because female Ural owls are incredibly protective of their young. And there's many stories about adults flying at people to try and drive them away. But, you know, zoom lens, nice and safe, keep the bird's welfare first. But this bird's about 3 or 4 weeks old. You can see its flight feathers are just coming through there, and it's got this lovely downy sort of plumage still. And again, this was just taken like late afternoon, and it was just lazing around, wasn't bothered by us at all. So that's always which is always a good sign. But yeah, great bird to see. And from a big owl to a little owl, or sorry, a small owl, this is pygmy owl. So this is Europe's smallest owl, a bit bigger than a finch. But these love to eat things like willow tits and bullfinches, as well as voles. So we're very lucky that when we go to Finland, we've got some very good ground agents, and they monitor the owls, and they put up nest boxes and platforms, and they ring the young and just, you know, keep just a general eye on them. And this particular pair of pygmy owls, they always put up 2 boxes for pygmy owls, one for them to nest in, and then one box to use as a larder. And this particular pygmy owl had a box that was absolutely crammed full to the top of voles, dead voles. It was a really good vole year, and it was just brimming with voles. And inside the nest box, it had 11 chicks. Absolutely stunning, stunning numbers. And look at that bird, they're so aggressive they are. And they say they're so tiny, but really, really are a bird with attitude. And another one of everyone's favourites, this is Tengmalm's owl, or boreal owl, as it's now called, I think. And again, this was taken at a nest box, and our local guide, he just gets a branch and just rubs the nest box very gently, so the bird thinks there's maybe a predator, and the owl puts its head out. And if you've got a copy of the Collins Field Guide, the European Field Guide, it always says that it has an astonished look. Well, I think that's astonished. It really does. But of course, you don't want to see them in a nest box. You want to see them out in the natural environment. So here's a bit more open shot. You can just see the odd mosquito around the outside there as well. Yeah, one of these turned up in Shetland about a year ago, or 18 months ago. So these do turn up in the UK very rarely, but yeah, fantastic owl. And I say, another bird that everyone wants to see. But there's one owl that is on everyone's list, and that's the magnificent great grey owl. We're very lucky that we see great grey owl every time we go. Just touch wood there. And the locals have put up platforms and nests. So what they do, they put up a platform, just a wooden platform with a few branches, and then the birds make their own nests. And this is a female great grey owl, and you can just about see somewhere in the middle there's a little fluffy ball of fur there. This one had a couple of chicks, but this female just sat on the nest, and again we were at a sensible distance, but what a bird. Yeah, really, really smart. And here's another shot. This is a male great grey owl. This is taken at a different nest, and they're absolutely stunning, and they're a big owl. Most of it basically is feather. They don't weigh anything really, but those lovely sort of pale yellow eyes and those big circular discs, absolutely stunning. And this particular male had a nest nearby, so I had a couple of chicks in there, and there she is with a beady eye on us. But yeah, everyone wants to see great grey owl, and I can understand why, because they are very, very smart. So on the edge of the forest, lots of agricultural areas. By the time we go in June, there's hooper swans. Some are non-breeding birds, but also they stop off on their way to even further north. And this is just a flock just feeding in a wheat field. There's a few immatures in there, but so these pass through, and a few do breed locally, as do common cranes. Common cranes are a very common breeding species. See them in big flocks, and then as you're driving along the road, you often come across the odd pair. So here's a pair of adults here with 2 juveniles, This photograph was taken by one of our customers, Dave Ackfield. Lovely shot. And of course, common cranes are doing really well now in the UK. I think there's over sort of 60, 70 pairs now, which is really, really good. So apart from cranes, we have a few species of woodpecker and other birds. So this is wryneck, not particularly common. We see them most years, but you know, not always easy. And they're not always in fantastic views, but this was a lovely one taken on an afternoon. Again, we're used to seeing these in the autumn and spring on migration here in the UK. But yeah, another bird that you can't see enough wrynecks. And this beauty, this is a pallid harrier. This is a male pallid harrier. This used to be incredibly rare nesting species in Finland. And probably the best place to see it in sort of the Western Palearctic was somewhere like Kazakhstan, out on the steppes. But the last 10, 15 years, numbers of pallid harrier in the UK, in Finland, have increased immensely. I mean, they're quite, I won't say common, but they're much more common. And I think that sort of is the reason why we're getting more records here in the UK. Birds heading south from Finland and Scandinavia to sort of take a wrong turn and end up here in the UK. But look at that lovely ghostly white plumage and that sort of white diamond on the primaries. Yeah, really, really, really smart bird. Yeah, one of my favourites. And we've got a few waders that nest. This is a black-tailed godwit. So here in Essex, we're used to seeing the Icelandic race, but this is the nominate race, Mimosa. So it's not as rusty on the breast as the ones we're used to seeing. And in fact, this race of black-tailed godwit is incredibly rare in Essex. We get very few of these, but then I think they're quite hard to identify as well. But up in Finland, they nest in just the open fields, and you often see them perching on telegraph wires, which looks very strange. But yeah, so black-tailed godwit. And ortolan bunting. There's a few pairs of ortolan bunting in northern Finland, but it's pretty much on the edge of their range. So you don't see them all the time. They do cover quite large areas, but this is a bird that was, well, it was singing out in the open fields, and always good to see. And then there's a few other species of warbler that turn up, that arrive in Finland about end of May, beginning of June. So this is Blythe's reed warbler. And these sing right through the night, a bit like nightingales do here in the UK. Blythe's reed warblers sing pretty much 24 hours a day in Finland, and obviously it's got 24-hour daylight. So lots of opportunity for them to sing. And of course, a couple of these turned up in Essex last year. One in the autumn and one or two in the spring. So yeah, wonderful little bird. Not the most exciting thing in the world, but you know, always good to see. And this is river warbler. So this is the song of river warbler. Hopefully my internet's just come back on again, but this is the river warbler song. And it's related to the grasshopper warbler. And these sing at night or in the evenings. And just sort of, you know, real, not the most exciting bird as well, but again, another good bird and a rare bird that turns up here in Britain. Enough of that noise, hurts my ears. So not just birds, we have a few butterflies as well. This is pearl bordered fritillary. So it's the same species that we get here in the UK. Again, pretty much at its northern range. It's one of a few species of fritillary. There's a couple of other rarer fritillaries that come out a little bit later in June. But if the weather's good, you do stand a chance. And this is northern wool brown. So this again is a northern speciality. It doesn't occur here in the UK. Again, not the most exciting of butterflies, but we don't tend to see many species. So anything you do see, it's worth looking at. So this is northern wool brown. And then this is, obviously lots of pine woods. So this is parrot crossbill. Not one of my best photos, but as you can see, it's a chunky crossbill, and it's got this massive bill. I mean, really, you know, almost sort of, well, at least a third bigger than common crossbill, and that lovely sort of bull-necked, chunky-necked look. And these are relatively common, and also you do get common crossbills as well, but parrots tend to be the predominant species. Now this, you'll be forgiven to think this was taken at dusk. This is taken by one of our customers, John Clark, who I think is watching tonight. This picture was taken at something like 1:30 in the morning. So there's 24-hour daylight. So basically about 2 o'clock in the morning, the sun drops down below the horizon, and then about 30 seconds later, it comes back up again. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in my life. But obviously with 24-hour daylight, you know, there is a danger that you want to go birding for 24 hours. But we tend to go out early in the mornings and out in the evenings and have plenty of rest time in between. So it's not 24-hour birding, if anyone's thinking of joining us. So it's, you know, it's all sensible, you know, in moderation. But yeah, so this is like 1:30 in the morning, and what a view, and what a lovely picture as well. So Finland, so apart from lots of forests, there's lots of rivers and wetland areas, lots of these fast flowing shallow rivers. And you can see here lots of silver birch, and there's a few pine trees around the edge, spruce and other species of pine. But this particular river is home to dippers, and this is one of my favourite photographs. I think he was obviously a little bit bored, having a bit of a yawn. But this is black-bellied dipper. So this is the continental race of dipper. So we get the dipper in here in the UK with the sort of rusty red underparts, but this is very dark on the underparts. And these are common on these fast-flowing rivers. And I had to sort of lay down on my belly to get this shot, much to the amusement of the group that were watching. But yeah, wonderful, wonderful bird. But of course, Finland, you know, is not just flat. This is a view from a place called, I'll just excuse the pronunciation, Valtavaara. So it's a big hill. I mean, they do downhill skiing in Finland, and there's even like ski jumps and stuff. So it can be quite a hilly country. And this is the view from Valtavaara Hill. And as you can see, there are trees and lakes and not much else. There is some houses in the middle top. And this is a bit of a trek up this hill. It's about a half an hour, 45-minute walk, but absolutely beautiful on the way up. Lots of birds to see. And again, another view from the hill. This was taken with my mobile phone, so it's not the best shot. But yeah, so we're travelling up for one species. And excuse the photo, this is red-flanked bluetail. So this is a digiscope shot that I took. This shows a young male red-flanked bluetail. So you can see the red flanks. It's related to the robin. And it's just got a few blue feathers coming through there. But these birds, again, used to be really rare in Finland, like they did here in the UK. And in the last 10 years, numbers of red-flanked bluetail in Finland have just skyrocketed, doing really, really well. And again, that sort of relates to the number of records that we're getting here in the UK, because they're turning up every year. Well, every autumn there's quite a few, except in Essex. But that's what they really look like. This is this photograph was kindly lent to me by top Finnish photographer Jari Peltomäki, who runs our ground agents, and he's an incredibly great photographer. And I mean, look at that. This is an adult male, lovely blue, and obviously got red flanks. No surprise there. But yeah, what a bird! Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I wish I could take shots like that. And speaking of dodgy shots, another one with my mobile phone. This is Calypso orchid. So this is an emblem of one of the national parks. This is an emblem of the Ulanka National Park. Lovely orchid, a little bit like Lady Slipper orchid, but a beautiful pink and dappled sort of underneath. It's very nice. And then we head out into the forest again. And this is willow ptarmigan, or willow grouse. So the red grouse that we see here in the UK is they're a subspecies of this bird, but this bird is a male in summer plumage. So in the winter they go completely white with white wings, and in the summer they sort of molt to look like this. And this bird, and they sit up on top of pine trees on the lookout, and then they drop down to the ground and feed on birch saplings and other plants. But yeah, really smart little bird. And yeah, his lovely glistening white wings. This is the bird we used to see here lots in the UK. This is willow tit. The willow tits in Finland are much bigger and paler than ours. These are really frosty grey looking birds, but it's still got the big wing panel. And as you can see, it's got a beak full of food. So that's a few mosquitoes less, which in my book's always good. So they're not biting us. But yeah, willow tits are really, really numerous. And then it's getting on for lunchtime. So normally we go and have civilized lunches in cafeterias and restaurants and things, but occasionally, needs must, and you have to cook your own lunch. So here we are, we're up in the Guillemot area now. So we've got coats on because it's a little bit chillier. But the good news is the mosquitoes have gone. So we haven't got to have our mosquito hats on. But so the reason for cooking sausages, which you wouldn't believe this, but it attracts a species of bird, and it's one that we try and see, but it attracts these Siberian jay. So Siberian jay love the smell of cooking sausages. They can smell them from miles, and they come in through the forest silently. And oh, what a bird! They're one of my favourites. Such a sort of gentle looking species of the crow family. And here's another shot. So from this bit, I put a couple of pieces of sausage in this broken stump. So here, and they come in and make him work for its lunch. But absolutely beautiful bird with this lovely rusty tail and this lovely rusty wing patch. But beautiful species. And again, it's a bird that people like to see. Not particularly common. I mean, they do wander around the forest in sort of quite a big territory. So when you do come across them, it is a good sight. And here's another shot, just one in a pine tree. But say similar to our jay, same size. But again, they say they're quite nice to see through the forest. Oh, another owl. Got to fit a few more owls in. So this is northern hawk owl. So these are again quite a reasonable common nesting species in Finland and into Norway. And they often sit up on high vantage points. So roadside wire, telegraph cables, signposts, tall birch trees. And they're just on the lookout for voles, small birds. And you can see that on the bill of this one, it's quite bloody. So this obviously had a meal recently. And you can sort of see how they get their name hawk owl. So it's got really quite a long tail and very rounded, broad wings. I mean, you could be mistaken for maybe sparrowhawk, goshawk. Well, perhaps that's just my eyes, but yeah. So hawk owl. So nice to see. And that particular bird had this nearby. So this was one of about 4 or 5 chicks that was scattered around the general area. And again, this was taken at a sensible distance. We're talking at the sort of 20, 30 meters at least. And, we're always, make sure that the bird's welfare comes first. Yeah, this little cute bundle of fluff was giving us the eyeball. It's really good. So the reason for heading up into the Guillemot area, up on the Russian border, is you get to see a couple of the scarcer buntings. So this is little bunting. And again, we might be used to seeing these on the east coast in the autumn, but here they breed in sort of damp, boggy forests. Absolutely, this is a singing bird, but they often show really, really well. You can see lovely chestnut crown stripe and nice sort of chestnut ear coverts, and this lovely little white eye ring. One of my favourite buntings, and again, I'm always pleased to see these. And it's always nice to see them in their breeding habitat rather than on migration. Not the best photo in the world, but this is a male rustic bunting. I'm not sure I think these are declining. I'm not sure the reason why. I mean, the habitat appears to be staying the same, but these have become trickier to find in the last few years. And also, even in Britain, they're not turning up like they used to. So there's something adrift, you know, there, but so I'm not sure what. But this is a male. You can see that lovely black and white head markings with the rusty plumage. And so this was just taken on a power line or telegraph wire. Here's our friend the moose, or the elk. And these are, again, numerous mammal that lives in the forest, and they come out early mornings and evenings to graze in these lovely meadows. And this one's got his breakfast with him, so he's trotting off there. And this is just, we were just driving along a forest track, and this one was just next to the road. And so you can see I think it's the young male. These starts of the antlers there, but they're big beasts. And also you get wild boar up in there as well, and pine martens as well, and also reindeer. Now the roads in Finland are really quiet. There's hardly any cars, but what's the chances of having a Mercedes and then me driving along the road just as a reindeer crosses? You couldn't time that any worse. But we let him go across. But yeah, so there's quite a big herd of reindeer in northern Finland. I think they're sort of semi-feral, but then as you go further north into Norway, they're wild. So Capercaillie, absolutely stunning male Capercaillie. This particular bird, I don't know if some of you know that occasionally male Capercaillies get a bit of a overdose of testosterone, and they go a bit nutty hormonally, and they sort of can attack people, and they get a bit rogue. So this happened to be a rogue individual that we saw in Finland a couple of years ago. And again, keep a nice safe distance because they're a big bird. You know, they're almost a metre tall. And I had a bit of a experience with one on my last trip where I wandered into a forest looking for rustic bunting, and a male Capercaillie flew at me, and I don't think I've ever turned and run so fast in all my life. So they're a big bird, but some of you may have seen these in Scotland as well. But they're absolutely stunning birds. When he's got this big tail that's fanned out, and this lovely metallic green on the breast, and his lovely shaggy throat there. And they make a lovely clicking noise and then pop. So yeah, wonderful. So bullfinch, species you're probably all familiar with. This is northern bullfinch. This is much bigger than our bullfinches, and they sound completely different as well. They sound like they're playing a toy trumpet. They sort of go, a bit like that. It's a poor impression, but these are a common species throughout the birch woodlands. And woodpeckers. Black woodpecker. It's again another bird that everyone wants to see. This is a male black woodpecker. These are the size of a jackdaw. I mean, they're absolutely monster birds. And this particular bird was coming into a nest hole, and this is the female coming into a nest. And this nest happens to be on a golf course, and it was right next to the golf clubhouse. So we went into the golf clubhouse and bought ourselves coffee and cake, sat on the veranda, you know, just relaxing, watching these birds coming in and out. Absolutely a delight. And yeah, I think there were 3 chicks in there, but you just see 2 there, and they're quite well grown chicks. But and this is, I think it's in an aspen tree. This is, black woodpeckers like aspens, as do our next species of woodpecker. So this is 3-toed woodpecker. Again, another bird that likes aspens and other dead wood. This is a male 3-toed woodpecker, has the yellow cap and this lovely sort of white stripe down its back. Sort of medium-sized woodpecker, smaller than a great spotted, but bigger than lesser spotted. And these nest in the Finnish forests. And here's a shot of the female going into a nest hole. She hasn't got any yellow on her head, and you can see the 3 toes there. So all our other woodpeckers have 2 toes at the front, 2 toes at the back, but surprisingly enough, this has only got 3 toes. Another speciality of the area is this. This is Siberian tit, and this bird is colour ringed as part of a study, but it's sort of bigger than a blue tit. It's got quite a long tail with this lovely dusky brown cap and these pale flanks, sort of lovely warm brown flanks. And again, the nest boxes are put up for them, but they do like to nest in holes in trees. And again, not particularly common, but the further north you go in Finland, the more common they become. Black grouse. So an early morning or an evening excursion out to the meadows, we normally find black grouse. These are two males that are lecking, displaying, trying to impress the female nearby. And obviously a lot of you would have seen these in northern Britain, Scotland, and maybe Wales. But yeah, delightful. And they sort of cluckle and make sort of funny noises, and yeah, wonderful. Got to put some gulls in because I know how much you all like to see a gull picture. So this is a very dark back gull with yellow legs. So you would say it looks like a lesser blackback, but this is the northern race Fuscus or Baltic gull. Much more longer wing than our lesser blackback gulls that we see here in the UK, and say much darker backed. And occasionally these do turn up in the UK, but they're pretty rare. And then the open lakes of northern Finland and ponds have breeding velvet scoter, and common scoters too. This is a male velvet scoter. This lovely sort of white sort of teardrop, and white in the wing to identify it. And we're used to seeing these out in the coast, you know, miles out to sea, or places like Holcombe in Norfolk or Titchwell. But here they're nesting on basically quite small lakes and ponds, which is slightly off-putting. And here's another shot of little gull. I was quite pleased with this shot because I managed to catch it mid-mouthful of a mosquito. It's got these lovely dusky black underwings and bright red feet, and absolutely delightful gull. Almost as nice as a Mediterranean gull, but not quite. And then we've got another species of game bird. This is hazel grouse, and it depends. I hope you can hear that. It's not everyone can hear it. It's a very high-pitched call. It sounds like someone whistling. But that's the song of the male hazel grouse. But they're a very shy bird, and you're lucky to get some good shots. And then in last feature of our trip to see owls in Finland at this part of this tour is also to go and see brown bears. Now I hope to have some video of brown bear, but it doesn't translate very well into YouTube, the streaming of YouTube. So it's very jerky. So I'm afraid you just got a still image. But yeah, this was fabulous. We watched half a dozen brown bears feeding basically in an area of sort of no man's land between Finland and Russia. And you can see a few sentry towers in the distance. But this big open marshy area where the brown bears live. And I'd never seen brown bear before, and it was absolutely stunning. And brings back many happy memories. Again, this was taken at sort of 11 o'clock at night. So the sun's still high in the sky on a lake near the hotel. Again, lots of nice marshy margins, which home to wood sandpiper. And quite a nice small delicate sandpiper. Nice sort of yellowy legs, very sort of slim, long neck. And again, we see these here in the UK on spring and autumn migration. But they're quite a common breeding species on the Finnish bogs. And most of these lakes have black-throated divers. I think every lake has a pair of black-throated divers on. I mean, they've got to be the most stunning plumage diver. Absolutely wonderful, wonderful, wonderful bird. I mean, look at all those stripes and squares and colours. Yeah, I could just sit and watch this all evening. Okay, so we leave that part of Finland. And now we're at Rovaniemi Airport. So this is for our second trip. So we're doing Arctic Varanga in Norway and northern Finland. So this apparently is Santa's home airport, which I didn't know that Santa had an airport, but obviously he has. The airport's quite tiny. So this is people waiting to pick their bags up, and obviously he's got the reindeer there. So again, keen to get out birding, and our good old friend the brambling is still present. again, very numerous as we go into this part of Finland and also into northern Norway. And I heard today one of the Essex Birdwatching Society members, Ken Hudgell, he lives in Hatfield Peveril, and he's got a brambling in his garden at the moment that he's had for a while. And it turns out today that it was ringed in Norway. So so these birds that we're seeing up in the Finland and Norway could winter here in the or do winter here in the UK, which is always nice. And as you go through the Finnish forests up into Norway, willow warblers are absolutely everywhere. The songs are just emanate. Yeah, absolutely stunning. Lovely long-winged warbler with pale legs. And in fact, if you go into Helsinki airport, they play the songs of these birds. And this is waxwing. So again, probably a species you're all familiar with, but they breed in northern Finland. Got this lovely trilling call, and they perch right on top of these spruces and pines and sing away, trying to attract the female. But yeah, wonderful. Hoping we might see some of these this winter, but I don't think it's going to happen now. And a good old friend, the reindeer. So these are wild reindeer now, up in sort of northern Finland. Quite photogenic and quite sweet. In fact, I saw one today at Colchester Zoo. So I walked past the zoo today, and there was reindeer there as well. And here's a couple of little baby reindeer. They're called calves, I suppose. Foals, something like that. So yeah, a couple of these on the main road. Always lovely to see. And we do like to stop for a cake and a coffee because it's part of the essential birding day. Now this is a little cafe and accommodation called Nelajan Tulen Tupa. Excuse me if it doesn't sound anything like that, but there you go. So it's a little sort of wonderful little place to stop off just for an hour or two, and we go there for one bird. And it's this. This is pine grosbeak. So these are related to the finches, so related to crossbills and hawfinches, etc. But these are big. These are the size of a song thrush. And this is a male, this lovely raspberry red colour, and these lovely white wing bars. And the cafe has put out feeders just out the back, and these birds come into food, and yeah, really photogenic. And they're there all year. These are around all year. And this is a female or a young male. They're much more orangey than the adult males. And you can see this one's been scoffing on sunflower seeds. But yeah, really, really nice. And also it's a good place again to see Siberian tip. This one hasn't got any colour rings on, but it's got this lovely brown cap like we saw earlier. This one's just had a bath, so it's a little bit scruffy, but a delightful little bird. And these are very much related to the chickadees of North America. And I think the new name for this is sort of like Siberian chickadee. And red squirrels. You know, where there's food and bird tables, there's always going to be a red squirrel around. And this one was, again, very, very photogenic. Now we saw hawk owls. So now we're out, we've just sort of left Finland, and now we're just on the sort of Norwegian border. And we were driving through there one day, and we came across this pair of hawk owls on a roadside wire. And I think it's the male on the left. I think it's slightly smaller than the female. He brought in this vole. In fact, I'm not even sure what species of vole it is, but it's a vole, to the female. And you can see by the state of their claws that they've obviously been feeding rather well. But she flew off and dropped down into the garden, and we spoke to the lady who lived in this little farm, and there were 7 chicks in her garden, and so there was obviously a huge amount of food around, and consequently the chicks were doing really well. And this is just amazing. And again, this was just taken, 50 feet, 60 feet away, and the adults are not bothered and the young one's not bothered. It's just sort of thinking, who are these people watching me? But yeah, really, really nice. So this is sort of a bit of a change of habitat now. So we're into sort of the fells of northern Norway. These pictures, next few pictures, were taken by one of our customers, Lawrence Smith, He takes some very good landscape shots. So you can see not a lot of vegetation now. We're looking at some sort of very dwarf birch trees and willows, and basically just sort of boggy areas and rocks and sort of heather, sort of moorland really. So, and there's still snow on the ground, and this again is in mid-June. And here's just a few shots of just the sort of landscape, traditional Norwegian house. And here's the shed, or sheds, the new shed and the old shed. But lovely landscape. And this is a fish drying sort of rack. So they've got their cod drying there for a snack. And as you can see in the distance there's lots of birds passing. So the waters are very rich in live fish and other creatures, so attract lots of seabirds. This is a lighthouse on the northern tip of Norway. It's a great sea watching place to look for things like Pomerine skua, white-billed diver, and ducks and things flying past. But yeah, lovely white tower. And this picture is a traditional wooden church on Varanga Fjord. Nice shallow bays, and I say traditional wooden church. A few birds in the churchyard, things like Arctic redpoll, which was always a nice bird. And then this is where we stay. It's not the most salubrious place, but this is a place called Botsfjord. It's a fishing town in northern Norway. And as you can see in sort of middle of the picture there, you've got the church, much more salubrious affair. And it's got quite a few trees and scrub around. But then as soon as you go up behind, you've got these big granite hills, and still a bit of snow on the ground. So common gull nests in good numbers. Everywhere you go, there's common gulls, and hooded crows too. These are the most common crow. You get quite a few ravens, but hooded crow is predominantly the number one crow. Now, if you excuse this picture, in those areas of birch and willow, there's quite a good population of bluethroat. This is a male red-spotted bluethroat. In all the times I've been there, I have never got a decent picture of a bluethroat. And I was going to slip in a shot from somewhere else, but I thought that would be cheating. So there's something to improve on next time. But yeah, lovely bird. And so they breed in the area, but they can be a bit skulky. And then we head up onto the fells. And I don't know if for those who saw the last month's talk on Speyside, featured dotterel. So this is the male dotterel. So the male dotterel is much dully coloured than the female, because the female lays the eggs, and the male incubates the eggs and looks after the young. So he has to be nice and camouflage. So, and these can be incredibly difficult to spot when they're nesting out on these sort of granite rock beds. But here's a female dotterel, much more brightly coloured. This lovely sort of white crescent on the chest, white eye stripe. This was taken on a little bit of a wet day, so she's a little bit bedraggled, but wonderful wader. And again, these turn up in the autumn and spring on their way north. We can see them in Essex. But this was taken up on top of a mountain in the middle of Norway. And up on the same mountain, we have, I think it's called rock ptarmigan, or ptarmigan. So these are the ones you get in Scotland. This is a female ptarmigan. You can see from the camouflage, I mean, these nest up on these sort of short, mossy, heathery sort of areas, and they blend in really, really well. And you can still see it's got a bit of its white winter plumage there on their belly. But again, these take some finding just because they blend in so well. And white-tailed eagles. You can't travel around the Norwegian coast without seeing at least 15, 20 white-tailed eagles. You know, maybe in the morning you'd see 20. This was taken on a particularly wet day. You do occasionally get the odd damp day up in northern Norway, but this bird was just coming into land, so it's a bit scraggy, but really nice. But this particular bird was perched right next to the road. So it's an adult white-tailed eagle, and it was just completely oblivious. I pulled up alongside it, and it just sat and looked at us and took some photos, and we all admired it, and then we left it alone. But absolutely amazing birds. And of course, they've obviously reintroduced them into Isle of Wight, and I think there's talk of reintroducing them into Norfolk in the coming years, which will be nice to see. So as we travel around the coast of Oranga, we've got lots of eiders. These are common eiders, 2 females. Lovely markings, that lovely long Roman nose. And in the summer, if you're lucky, you get to see king eider. So this is a female king eider. It's got a much shorter bill and a much more sort of chestnutty, warm, gingery sort of plumage. This was taken just outside our hotel, just on a little creek, and so not the best photo in the world, but these are much more common in the winter than in the summer, so it's always good to catch up with one. If you're lucky, you might see a male king eider as well. I don't know, look at the colours on that, it's just like a clown's face. And say occasionally there's a few king eiders around in the summer. So by the time we go in mid-June, goosanders have already finished breeding. So these are all male goosanders, and they're just starting to molt into eclipse plumage. So the bird sort of middle, slightly to the right with the red head has already got its sort of reddish brown head, and all the others are a little bit blotchy where they're molting into eclipse. But this particular group was one of there was 200 odd birds in this flock. So vast numbers of goosander sort of all congregate together to molt, and they're all males as well. So presumably the females of looking after the young and the males have all cleared off. So widgeon, Eurasian widgeon, are breeding. This female's got a couple of little downy chicks. They can only be a few days old. She's in tow with her. And again, these breed on all the open sort of lakes and on pools as you drive around Finland and Norway, as do hooper swans. This particular bird, again, was on a roadside pool and completely oblivious to us watching it. And lots of waders. Northern Norway is really good for waders. This is Wimbrel. They've got the short decurved bill and the stripy head, and the sort of the whistle that it does. So these are relatively numerous, as are golden plover. Absolutely stunning in breeding plumage. And again, these breed up on the open fells and mossy areas, boggy areas. Our good old friend the oyster catcher with his nice pink trousers on there. This is in breeding plumage, so he's looking really smart. Again, these are numerous. And dunlin. Dunlin breed up in northern Norway. This one's obviously had a good feed. He's got a very muddy bill. You can see its black belly there and lovely sort of mottled upper parts. And snipe. So if you go out in the evening and you listen, all you can hear is this noise. So this is a drumming snipe. So you can see that on the tail there, he's got these 2 tail feathers that stick out. So this noise is, the tail feathers vibrate in the air to create this noise. I mean, that's just absolutely stunning. Ring plovers, they breed again on around the coastline, and again get some nice views of those. And there's a few ruff as well. This is a nice male with a ruff. This was taken on that damp day that I mentioned, so it's looking a little bit worse for wear, but absolutely amazing in breeding plumage. This is not something we see very often here in the UK, but he's a delightful wader. Really nice. And also the northern Norway is very good for this wader. This is Temmink stint. So this is quite a tiny little wader, a bit smaller than dunlin. These lovely sort of yellowy green legs. And this particular bird was taken on a small muddy puddle right next to our hotel. And I must admit, obviously with 24-hour daylight, I think I woke up at like 2 in the morning and I thought, oh, I can go out birding. So I went out for an hour with my camera and saw this wonderful bird. And as I was watching it, it flew up and started displaying. And they fly up in the air and they do this wonderful display flight with their wings sort of above them, and make this lovely trilling noise. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah. That's not deafening you all, that horrible high-pitched noises. But beautiful bird, beautiful bird. Arctic terns breed again in good numbers. And by the time we visit in midsummer, there's often a few glaucous gulls hanging around. They're much more numerous in the winter, but a few of these immature birds tend to hang around. And this one's on a very boggy area, and you can see from the picture there, it's got a few of these little purple plants. So this is butterwort. This is a sort of insectivorous plant that grows quite commonly throughout the area. And when you're out on the sort of tundra and boggy areas, it's really unusual to see shorelarks singing. Again, we're used to seeing these in the winter around the coastline, but here's where they breed. And they've got this lovely fluty song. You can never get used to seeing shorelarks singing. And then another species that we get in breeding in plumage is Lapland bunting. And again, we see these in the winter here around the coast of East Anglia, and they're not particularly attractive, but in the summer they are one stunning bird. Also get snow buntings up here as well. So yeah, Lapland bunting in breeding plumage is a cracking bird. So as we travel around, the lots of display boards. Just the locals are quite into nature, so there's lots of these identification boards scattered around the place. Just gives you, and they're all in English and obviously Norwegian, which is helpful. So I wouldn't even want to pronounce some of those names. And then we head up to the northern part of Norway. This is the town of Vardø. So this is on the edge of the South Barents Sea. And the big radar towers you can sort of mast things behind is part of the Norwegian Globus radar system. So Russia is about 70 kilometers from here. And in the past few years, they've had a few run-ins with the Russian Air Force that are just pushing their luck a little bit by flying past a bit close. So this monitors these radar things monitor the airspace. But wonderful little town, again, fishing town. These lovely sort of coloured houses made of wood. And as you travel around the town, any ledge or open area are home to nesting kittiwakes. So I wouldn't want to be doing the paintwork for that, but yeah, so kittiwakes nest on any available spot. And they're just such a numerous bird to see in the town. And then the highlight of our trip to this part of Norway is a 10-minute boat ride across to the island of Hornoya. This island is quite a steep island, as you can see, and there's footpaths that go round. But it's home to up to 50,000 seabirds, plus at least 50,000 pairs of herring gull. So it's an absolutely seabird heaven. And as you can see from this shot, it doesn't really do it justice, but there's birds just flying over all the time. And if you're into photography, it gives you some really good practice at flight shots. So these are European shags, and again they breed on the island, and you can see a few immature birds, the browner ones there, with the nice much darker black adults. So these again nest low down on the cliffs. And then we get guillemots. So this is the bridled form of guillemot, and as you travel further north throughout Europe, the bridled form becomes much more common, and almost all of the birds are bridled guillemots. It's like it's wearing a monocle. And everyone's favourite, the puffin. Got to put a puffin in. Yeah, lots of pairs of puffin on the island, especially up on the top of the island where it's much more grassier, and there's lots of holes for them to nest in. So lots of puffins and razorbills too. They're one smart auk. But it's one bird that we go to the island specifically for, is this. This is Brunnich's guillemot. So very similar to our common guillemot, but it's got this white stripe down the bill. There's about 500 pairs nest on the island, and we get some lovely views. And these do turn up occasionally here in the UK. There was one, I remember seeing one at Portland Bill, or way somewhere down that way a few years back, which was good. And thought I'd slip another picture of puffin in because they're just lovely, aren't they? This one's having a bit of a yawn. So fulmars nest around the island. And again, as you travel around, you get some of the northern race blue formers, which are like very just dark grey blue in colour. But there's still lots of these sort of normal formers around. If you're into photography, I mean, it's a great place. Although it's not a photography trip, it's a birding trip. There's lots of opportunities for photography. And here's some of the group. We're just on the edge of this little lake. And the birds are quite, they're used to people. They're very tame, and with a little bit of patience, you get views like this. This is a female redneck phalarope. So a bit like the dotterel we saw earlier, the female is much brightly coloured than the male. So she lays the eggs and then clears off and leaves the male to incubate and look after the young. But yeah, just sitting by these lakes, the phalaropes come right up to you, and there's quite a few, you know, you end up taking thousands of photos. But yeah, so this is the female and this is the male. Slightly drabber, slightly rustier on the neck, but wonderful, wonderful bird. And I say they're just incredibly tame, and they spin around at your feet almost. Beautiful. So here we've got a male long-tailed duck. So apart from the phalaropes on these lakes, we've got long-tailed ducks. This one's in breeding plumage. They're lovely, make these lovely like calls, and they display to the females. This is a group of long-tailed ducks. But here we've got a pair still in sort of winter plumage, which is quite unusual for June. Normally they've all molted into breeding plumage by now. But you can see that wonderful long tail. And again, it's just a delightful bird to see. And occasionally you get scaup breeding on these lakes as well. And lots of these. This is red-throated diver. This was taken literally 2 foot from a main road. It's on a small pond. Amazing bird. You know, again, completely. This was taken from a vehicle, so I wasn't that close, but absolutely wonderful. And here's a slightly distant shot showing the red throat. But yeah, these are very, very numerous. Few mammals, or odd mammal. This is a red fox. I have no idea what it's eating. I don't think I really want to know, but we'll move on. We'll move on quickly with that. If you're into botany, really good place to see Arctic plants. This is one of the orchids that grows up in northern Norway. This is small white orchid. This can also be seen in the UK. There's 1 or 2 sites in northern Scotland where you can see this, I believe. But these are quite a common plant in Norway. And amongst the sort of the foliage, the willow scrub and the birches, we have breeding red-throated pipit. So this is a lovely pipit, similar to our meadow pipit, but it's got this lovely peachy red throat. And you can see it's got these lovely long hind claws there. But again, these are relatively common breeding species, especially on the edge of towns, along with Arctic redpolls and common redpolls. Back to our wet day again. This is a willow grouse. This is a slightly bedraggled bird, but again, this is still showing its white winter plumage. And then we finish up the talk tonight up on the fells. So this is typical landscape, very barren, but we're up on this area special for a few species. So it's a really good place to see skuas nesting. So we've got this is a pale phase Arctic skua, and these breed on the edge of these meadows and bogs. Lovely bird, these lovely central tail feathers and white wing flashes. So this is a pale phase bird, and this is a dark phase bird. So they're both the same species, but just they come in 2 different colour morphs. And they say this lovely sort of central tail feather, really, really nice. But one species we always try and connect with is this. This is long-tailed skua. These are smaller than Arctic skuas, much more delicate and dainty, with this lovely sort of creamy nape and black cap, but this lovely long tail. And these are absolutely delightful to see in flight. And they just sort of bounce along, almost turn-like. And this lovely sort of tail streamer coming up behind. So there you go. Thanks to everyone for watching tonight, and to the people at the bottom there for giving me a couple of pictures for the talk. We've got a website, as you can see there, also a Twitter page and Facebook page. So if anyone's interested, drop us an email or give us a call, and we'll try and help you out. Thank you very much.